We are at stage 6, paragraph page 456. Okay, and our last headword was rule stage revision. Okay, so let's
It's correct.
start from where you ended. Rule. Okay, let me just scroll down. Okay, ready? Here you go. Do you find computers confusing? Do you find computers confusing? Yes or no?
Yes, I find its
Computers
computers
confusing.
confusing.
Greg, would you be confused if I suddenly walked out of the room for no reason and didn't come back? Would you be confused if I suddenly walked out of the room for no reason and didn't come back? Yes, I'd be
Yes,
confused
I'd be
if you
confused
suddenly
if
walk
we
out of
suddenly
the room
walk out the
for no
room
reason
for no reason
and didn't come back.
and didn't come back.
Very good. What can we say instead of should? What can we say instead of should? We can say ought
We can say ought
instead of should.
instead of should.
Okay, give me an example. Give me an example, please. I ought to call my
I
dad
ought to call my dad
because it's his
because
birthday.
it's his birthday.
Very good. When we borrow money, ought we to pay it back as soon as possible? When we borrow money, ought we to pay it back as soon as possible? Yes. When
Yes,
we borrow money,
when borrow money,
we ought to pay it back
we ought to pay it back
as soon as possible.
as soon as possible.
Very good. What ought we to do before crossing the road? What ought we to do before crossing the road? We ought to look
We
both
ought to look
ways
both ways
before crossing the road.
before crossing the road.
Very good. Do you think children ought to be allowed to go to bed whenever they want? Do you think children ought to be allowed to go to bed whenever they want? Yes or no?
Ye- Yes,
I think children
I
ought
think
to be allowed
children ought to be allowed
to go to bed
to go to bed
whenever they want.
whenever they
They
want.
want. Very good. Okay, next. Is the surface of this table rough? Is the surface of this table rough? No. The
No,
surface of
the
that
surface
table
of the table
isn't rough.
isn't rough,
It's smooth.
it's smooth.
Very good. When you travel by boat, do you prefer the sea to be rough? When you travel by boat, do you prefer the sea to be rough? No. When I
No,
travel by
when I
boat, I don't prefer
travel by boat,
I don't prefer
I don't
the
prefer
sea to be rough.
the sea. It's behind.
Uh, the
It's
sea to be rough.
just the seas to be rough.
I prefer it to be
I'd
calm.
prefer it to be calm.
Very good. One more. No. When I
No,
travel by
when I
boat,
travel by boat,
I don't prefer
I
the
don't
sea
prefer
to
the
be
sea
rough.
to be rough.
I prefer it
I
to be
prefer it
calm.
to be calm.
Very good. Why? Why? Because a rough sea
Because a rough
makes me
sea
feel
makes me
seasick.
feel seasick.
Seasick. Very good. If someone tells you that they're feeling rough, what do they mean? If someone tells you that they're feeling rough, what do they mean? If someone tells
If
me
someone
that
tells me
they're feeling rough,
just feeling rough,
they mean they
they
aren't
mean
feeling very
they
well.
aren't they
Feeling
aren't feeling
very well.
very well.
Very good. Roughly, how many people would you say there were in China? Roughly, how many people would you say there were in China? I'd say
I'd
there were
say
roughly
there were roughly
like 1 billion people in
one
China.
billion people in China.
And so many. Very good. Do you like rough weather? Do you like rough weather? Yes or no?
No,
I
I
don't like
don't
rough
like
weather.
rough
I
weather.
prefer calm
I
weather.
prefer calm weather.
Very good. Which do you think is the roughest sport one can play? Which do you think is the roughest sport one can play? I think maybe
I think
rugby
maybe
is the
rugby
roughest sport
is a roughest
one
sport
can play.
one can play.
Very good. What do we usually mean by the word ground? What do we usually mean by the word ground? By the word ground,
By the wo-
we usually by the word
by the
ground,
word ground,
we usually mean
we usually
the
means
surface of the
the
land.
surface of the land.
Very good. Are there any shops in your town built below the level of the ground? Are there any shops in your town built below the level of the ground? Yes or no?
Yes,
There are some
there
shops
are
in my
some
town
shops in my
built
town
below the
below
level of the ground.
the level of the ground
Where? Where?
in
In
Kyoto
the
Station.
in Kyoto Station. That's correct. Very good. When a table is not level, what must we do? When a table is not level, what must we do? When a table
When a
is not
table
level,
is not
we
level,
must put something
we must put
under
something
one of its
under one
legs.
its legs.
Wicked, has your town get an underground railway? Has your town get an underground railway? Yes or no?
Yes.
My town's
My
got
town's
an underground
got
railway.
an underground building.
Very good. What's on the ground floor of your building? What's on the ground floor of your building? There's
There's
there's like what shops, parking lot, living room, ground floor.
the living room.
Now there's a living room. There is. Do you live in like a house? Do you
Yeah,
live in an apartment or a house?
apartment.
Apartment. So what's on the ground floor? What floor are you in?
What's store?
Okay, so there's stores. One more. There's some store
There's some
on the
stores
ground floor
on the ground
of
floor
my building.
of my building.
Very good. Where's the biggest football ground in your town? Where's the biggest football ground in your town? The biggest
The
football
biggest
ground
football
in my
ground
town is
in my town is short ground.
very good. Are the grounds of some famous old buildings in your country open to the public? Are the grounds of some famous old buildings in your country open to the public? Yes. The
Yes,
grounds of
the
some
ground
famous
of some
old
of
buildings. Famous old buildings.
old
One more?
buildings.
Yes. The
Yes,
grounds
the ground
of some famous
of some famous
old buildings
old
in my
buildings
country
in my
are
country
open to the
are
public.
open the public.
Very good. How can parents start educating their children before they go to school? How can parents start educating their children before they go to school? Parents can start
Parents start
educating their children
educating the children
before they go to
before
school
they go to
by
school
teaching
by
them
teaching
to
them
read and write.
to read and write.
Very good. What do we mean by an educated person? What do we mean by an educated person? By an
By
educated
an
person,
educated person,
we mean somebody
we mean
who
somebody
has continued
who has continuous
their studies
their studies.
to a high level.
It's high
Huh? To a high level.
to a higher level.
Very good. One more. By an
By
educated
an
person,
educated person,
we mean somebody
we mean
who has
somebody
continued
who has
their
continued
studies
their
to a
studies
high level.
to higher levels.
Very good. Tell me four common ways in which we can make a suggestion. Tell me four common ways in which we can make a suggestion, please. Four common ways
Or common
in
ways
which we
in
can
which
make a
we can
suggestion
make
are.
a suggestion are
Shall we wait for him?
go we
One more. Shall we wait for him?
till we wait for him.
Let's wait for him.
Wait for him.
How about waiting for him?
How about waiting for him?
Why don't we wait for him?
Why don't we wait for him?
Very good. How do we make the imperative in English? How do we make the imperative in English? We make
We
the
make
imperative in
the
English
imperative in
by
English
using the
by
infinitive
using the
without
infinitive
to.
without to.
Give me some examples. Give me some examples, please. Give me the book.
Give me the book.
Do it now.
Do it now.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Very good. Okay, next. How do we make a negative imperative? How do we make a negative imperative? We make a
We make
negative
a
imperative
negative
by
imperative
putting the word
by
don't
putting the word don't
before the infinitive.
because infinitive.
Very good. Give me some examples. Give me some examples, please. Don't give him the book.
Don't give him the book.
Don't be late.
Don't be late.
Don't forget to email
Don't
me.
forget to email me to me.
Very, one more. Don't forget to email me.
Don't forget to
To
email me.
very good. What does it sometimes mean when we put the word over before a verb? What does it sometimes mean when we put the word over before a verb? When we put the
When we
word
put
over
the word over
before a verb,
before the
it
verb,
sometimes
it
means
sometimes
to do
means
something
to do
excessively.
something excessively.
Right? Give me some examples. Give me some examples, please. Oversleep,
Oversleep,
overeat,
overeat,
etc.
etc.
Very good. What might happen if we overate? What might happen if we overate? If we overate,
If we
we might get
overeat,
stomach ache.
we might get
Stomach ache.
stomach ache.
Where I usually have that. I usually overate. And next, have you ever been late for work because you overslept? Have you ever been late for work because you overslept? Yes or no?
No,
I've never been late
I've never been late
for work because
for work
I've
because
overslept.
I've overslept.
Me, many times. Okay, next. Are nurses and doctors in busy hospitals often overworked? Are nurses and doctors in busy hospitals often overworked? Yes.
Yes,
Nurses and doctors
nurses and
in
doctors
busy hospitals
in busy
are
hospitals
often
are
overworked.
often overworked.
Very good. What are the contraries of overcook and overpay? What are the contraries of overcook and overpay? The contraries
The
of
contraries
overcook
of
and overpay
overcook and
are
overpay
undercook and
and undercook
underpay.
underpay.
Very good. What do we mean when we say that somebody is underpaid for the work they do? What do we mean when we say that somebody is underpaid for the work they do? When we say that
When we say
somebody
that
is
somebody
underpaid
is
for the
underpaid
work they do,
for the work they
we
do,
mean they
we
are not
mean
paid enough
they are not paid enough
for the work they do.
for the work
They
they do.
do. Very good. Okay. What happens to people who are charged by the police with committing serious crimes? What happens to people who are charged by the police with committing serious crimes? People who are
People
charged,
who
people who are charged
people who are charged
by the police
by the
with
police
committing serious
in
crimes
committing serious
are
crime
first taken to court,
are first taken to court,
and then, if
and
they are
then
found guilty,
if they are
found guilty,
found guilty,
they are sent to prison.
they are sent to prison.
Very good. How would you feel if you were told to charge the enemy in a battle? How would you feel if you were told to charge the enemy in a battle? If I were told
If I were
to
told
charge the enemy
to charge
in a
in
battle,
enemy in the
I'd
battle,
probably feel
I probably
very
feel
afraid.
very afraid.
Very good. If you had to be in charge of a big business, what kind of business would you choose? If you had to be in charge of a big business, what kind of business would you choose? If I had to be
If I had
in
to be
charge
in
of a
charge
big business,
of a big
I
business,
choose
I'd choose the internet business.
internet business. Very good. If you were seriously overcharged in a restaurant, would you ask to speak to the manager? If you were seriously overcharged in a restaurant, would you ask to speak to the manager? Yes or no?
Yes.
If I were seriously
If I was
overcharged
seriously
in
overcharged
a restaurant,
in a
I'd
restaurant,
ask to speak
I'd
to the
ask
manager.
to be to the
I'd
manager.
I'd ask to speak
I'd ask to speak
to the manager.
to the manager.
Very good. Have you ever refused to pay the service charge in a restaurant? Have you ever refused to pay the service charge in a restaurant? Yes or no?
Yes.
I've refused to
I
pay
refuse to
the
pay
service charge
the service
in a
charge
restaurant.
in a restaurant.
Might be very high, right? Okay, next. What's another use of the word charge? What's another use of the word charge? Another use
Another
of the
use
word charge
of the word
is
charge
in charging a
is in
battery.
charge in battery
For example, in a mobile phone.
in a mobile phone.
Very good. How often do you have to recharge your mobile? How often do you have to recharge your mobile? I have to
I
recharge
have to
my
recharge
mobile
my mobile once a day.
once a day. Very good. Okay. Was the sky clear yesterday? Was the sky clear yesterday? Yes or no?
Yes.
The sky was clear
The sky
yesterday.
is clear yesterday.
Well, one more. Yes, the sky was
Yes, the
clear
sky was
yesterday.
clear yesterday.
Very good. Can you make yourself clearly understood when you speak English in everyday situation? Can you make yourself clearly understood when you speak English in everyday situation? Yes, I can
Yes,
make myself
I can make myself
clearly understood
clearly
when
understood
I speak
when I
English
speak
in
English
everyday
in
situation.
everyday situation.
At what time of day are the streets usually at their clearest as regards traffic? At what time of day are the streets usually at their clearest as regards traffic? The streets are
The streets
usually at
are
their
usually
clearest
at the
as
clearest
regards traffic.
as regards traffic
What time?
morning,
Early in the morning. Very good.
early in the morning.
Who clears the table in a restaurant? Who clear the tables in a restaurant? The waiters.
the
and
waitress
waitresses
and waitresses
clear the tables in a
clear the
restaurant?
table in a restaurant.
Very good. If you invited me to your house, would you be my guest or my host? If you invited me to your house, would you be my guest or my host? If I
You,
invited
if
you
I invited
to my
you
house,
to my
I'd
house,
be your host.
I'd be a host.
Meg, if you could play host to three famous guests, which three famous people would you choose? If you could play host to three famous guests, which three famous people would you choose? If I could play host
If I could play host
to three famous guests,
to
to three famous guests,
three famous guests,
I choose.
I choose
Who do you choose?
Tom Cruise,
Tom Cruise,
Johnny Depp,
Johnny Depp.
and Einstein.
I one genius. Very good. I like that. Very good. Okay, next. What are the three forms of ride? What are the three forms of ride? The three forms of
The three
ride
homes
are
ride,
ride, road, ridden.
ride, road, rhythm.
Very good. Have you ever ridden a horse? Have you ever ridden a horse? Yes or no?
No,
I've
I've
never
never
ridden a horse.
ridden a horse.
Yeah, me neither. Have you ever ridden a bicycle at night without lights? Have you ever ridden a bicycle at night without lights? Yes or no?
No,
I've never ridden a
I've never
bicycle
ridden
at night
bicycle at
without
night
lights.
without light.
Very good. If you were a judge, on what kind of criminals would you be most severe? If you were a judge, on what kind of criminals would you be most severe? If I were a
If
judge,
I were a
the
judge,
kind of
the
criminals
kind of
I'd be
criminals
most severe
I'd be
on
most severe
would be
on would be a
murderers.
murderers.
Very good. Do you get very severe winters in your country? Do you get very severe winters in your country? Yes or no?
No,
We don't get
we
very
don't get
severe winters
very severe winter
in my country.
in my country.
Very good. Okay, next. What do people say when they receive a blow on the head? What do people say they see when they receive a blow on the head? People say
People
they
say
see stars
they see
when
stars
they receive a blow
when they receive a
on the
blow
head.
on the head.
Very good. What kind of people do you respect most? What kind of people do you respect most? The kind of people
The kind of
I
people
respect most
I
are
respect most are doctors.
doctors. Very good. Okay. If you had your own company, would you employ someone simply because they were your friend? If you had your own company, would you employ someone simply because they were a friend? Yes or no?
No,
If I had my
if I
own
had
company,
my own
I
company,
wouldn't employ
I
someone
wouldn't employ someone
simply because they
simply
were a
because
friend.
they are friend.
Very good. What do we employ to cut bread? What do we employ to cut bread? We employ a knife
We employ
to cut
a
bread.
knife, cut bread.
Very good. What do we call a person who employs somebody to work for them? What do we call a person who employs somebody to work for them? We call somebody
We call somebody
who who employs
who
somebody
employs
to work
somebody
for them
to work for
an
them.
employer.
I'm employer.
Very good. And what do we call the person who works for them? What do we call the person who works for them? We call the person
We call the
who
person
works for them
who works for
an
them
employee.
an employee.
Very good. Okay, next. Are there a lot of machines in a factory? Are there a lot of machines in a factory? Yes,
Yes,
there are a lot
there
of
are a
machines
lot of machines
in a
in
factory.
a factory.
What do we use a cash machine for? What do we use a cash machine for? We use a
We
cash
use
machine
a cash
for
machine
taking money
for taking money
out of the bank
out of the bank
quickly and easily.
quickly and easily.
Very good. And what could happen if you accidentally put a red sock in a washing machine with white clothes? What could happen if you accidentally put a red sock in a washing machine with white clothes? If I accidentally
If I
put a
accidentally
red sock
put a red
in
sock
a washing machine
in washing
with
machine
white clothes,
with white
I could
clothes,
get pink clothes.
could get pink clothes.
I could get pink clothes.
I could get
Pink
pink clothes.
clothes. Very good. What are the three forms of fly? What are the three forms of fly? The three
The
forms
three
of
forms
fly
of fly
are
are
fly, flew,
fly,
flown.
flew, from.
Have you ever flown in a plane? Have you ever flown in a plane? Yes or no?
Yes.
I've flown in a plane.
I've flown in a plane.
Very good. Okay, next. Are you good at drawing pictures? Are you good at drawing pictures? Yes or no?
No,
I'm not good at
I'm not good
drawing
at
pictures.
drawing
Yeah,
pictures.
me neither. I'm bad, very bad. It's okay. What do we mean by a rough drawing? What do we mean by a rough drawing? By a rough drawing,
By a rough
we
drawing,
mean a very
we
simple
mean
drawing.
a very simple drawing.
Very good. What's the easiest way to draw out cash? What's the easiest way to draw out cash? The easiest way
The easiest
to
way
draw out cash
to draw
is
out
to
cash
use a
is to
bank card
use a bank
in
card
a cash machine.
in a cash machine.
Very good. What does to draw the curtains mean? What does to draw the curtains mean? To draw the
To
curtains
draw
means
a curtains
to
mean
pull them open
to
or
put them
close.
open and open it close.
Very good. Okay. Next. How do we form the perfect continuous tenses? How do we form the perfect continuous tenses? We form the perfect
Behold the
continuous
perfect
tenses
continuous sentence
by using the verb
by
have,
using the verb to
the
have,
word been,
the word being,
and the present
and the
participle
present participle
of the main verb.
of the main verb.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. I have been studying
I have been
for
studying
2 hours.
for 2 hours.
Very good. When do we use the present perfect continuous? When do we use the present perfect continuous? We use the
We
present
use
perfect
the present
continuous
perfect
to say
continuous
how long an
to
action
say how long
has been
to
in
actions
progress.
has to be in progress,
Has been in progress
has been in
so
progress
far.
so far.
Very good. Give me an example. Give me an example, please. I have been living
I have been
in this
li-
house. I
I
have
have
been living
I have been living
in this house
in this
for
house
6 months so
for six
far.
months so far.
Very good. When do we use the past perfect continuous? When do we use the past perfect continuous? We use
We
the
use
past perfect
past perfect
continuous to
continuous
communicate
to
the
communicate
duration of an
the
action
duration of an
up to a
action
particular
up
point
to a particular
in the
point
past.
in the past.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. I had been living
I
in this
had been
house
living in this
for one
house
month
for one
when I
month
bought my new
when I
bed.
bought
My
to,
new bed.
my new bed.
Where good when do you use the future perfect continuous? When do we use the future perfect continuous? We use the
We
future
use the
perfect
future
continuous
perfect
to
continuous
communicate the
to
duration
communicate
of an action
situation of an
up
action
to a
up
particular
to
point
a
in
particular
the
point
future.
in the future.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. I will have been
I will
living
have been living
in this house
in this
for
house
8 months
for eight
at
months
the end of this
at
year.
the end of this year.
Wait, how long had you been sitting in that room for when I came in? How long had you been sitting in that room for when I came in? I had been sitting
I'd been
in
sitting
this room
in this room
for
for
how many hours or minutes?
how
Like
many?
say
10 hours
10 hours when you came in.
when you came in.
Very good. Since when have you been studying English? Since when have you been studying English? I've been studying English
I've been studying English
since
since high school.
high school. Very good. How long will you have been living in that place for when this year ends? How long will you have been living in that place for when this year ends? I'll have been living
I have been living
in this place for
in this place for 3 years
when this year ends.
when this year ends.
Since when? Since when? Since
Since
2003.
2000,
2020.
2020.
20. Very good. Okay, next. What's the difference in saying I have been living here for 2 months and I have lived here for 2 months? What's the difference between saying I have been living here for 2 months and I have lived here for 2 months? There is no important difference
There's no important difference
between saying I
between
have been
saying
living
I
here
have been living
for two
here
months
for
and
two
I have
months
lived here,
and have
lived here
here
for
live
two
here
months.
for 2 months.
Very good. Okay, so we stop there for today, but very good practice.